Primitive propulsion system, the taller one muttered. Inefficient energy distribution. Your weapons wouldn't breach a diplomatic shield, much less an imperial hull. More laughter. A soft chorus of amused clicking spread across the delegation. One of them turned to another and made a gesture that looked like a shrug followed by a grin, a universal sign of disappointment apparently. Park's jaw tightened. The Phoenix had taken 10 years of Earth's best effort to build. It was over 1 kilometer long, housed 100 crew members, and contained the most powerful fusion reactor humanity had ever made. On Earth, it was a miracle. To the Empire, it was a toy. Khan looked around the shipyard with condescending curiosity, as if marveling at a museum of outdated artifact. Then he turned to Park again. We appreciate your transparency, Admiral. This visit will make our relationship with your world smoother. The pause before relationship wasn't accidental, and neither was the tone. This wasn't diplomacy. It was domination in a polite coat. There was no discussion of mutual cooperation, no mention of alliance. The message was clear. Earth would comply with the Empire's demands or be swept aside. Later that day, Park sat in a steel-walled conference room deep beneath Seoul, where Earth's Defense Council had convened in full. The room was filled with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Around the table sat 20 of Earth's most senior military and political leaders, and none of them were smiling. Director Mia Kim, head of Earth's Space Defense Agency, stood at the front of the room with a tablet in hand. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back tightly, her eyes hard. They're demanding 30% of our rare minerals and exclusive rights to our lunar territories, she said. Effective immediately. A wave of stunned silence passed around the table. Then General Wu, a broad-shouldered veteran known for his bluntness, slammed his fist on the table. They're calling it integration. What they really mean is conquest. They're taking what they want without firing a single shot. Admiral Park nodded grimly. You all saw the scans. Their ships are hundreds of years ahead of us, thousands in some areas. If it came to a fight, we wouldn't last an hour. At the far end of the room, one man remained quiet. Commander Lee Jin-ho. At 42, he was the youngest person in the room, but he was also the head of Project Prometheus, a classified initiative so secret most of the people present didn't even know it existed. He had been preparing for this day for 3 years, ever since Earth's deep space telescopes first caught a glimpse of the Empire's forward scouts moving through the outer system. He said nothing during the first part of the meeting, letting the others argue, vent, and speculate. But inside, he was calculating, timing, readiness, options. Because while the Empire laughed at the Phoenix, they hadn't seen what his team had been building. Still, as he listened to the Council's despair, even Jin-ho couldn't help but feel the weight of reality. Earth wasn't being invited into some peaceful galactic alliance. They were being absorbed into a machine that had already consumed thousands of civilizations. One where advancement was regulated, freedom was conditional, and resistance was met with overwhelming force. The room grew quiet again as Director Kim finished outlining the Empire's next steps. They planned to classify Earth as a protected resource world, which sounded like charity, but really meant control. Earth would receive minimal defense from pirates or rogue traders in exchange for handing over its autonomy. The Empire would determine what technologies Earth could or couldn't develop. Advancement beyond approved levels was forbidden. The delegation from the Galactic Empire stepped onto the orbital shipyard platform with the casual confidence of a people who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Their boots made soft metallic clinks against the steel flooring, echoing faintly through the open-air dock that floated silently above Earth. Behind them loomed their transport, an elegant silver vessel shaped like a gliding predator, so advanced it made the human engineers nearby visibly uncomfortable. Admiral Daniel Park stood tall in his blue uniform, metals shining against his chest, hands folded neatly behind his back. He didn't smile, not because he didn't know how, but because it was taking everything in him not to let the disgust show on his face. He had trained for this moment, representing Earth to a dominant interstellar force, but now that it was happening, it felt less like diplomacy and more like humiliation. The Empire's representatives moved with a kind of amused grace. Their alien bodies adapted to lower gravity and longer lifespans. The lead diplomat, who introduced himself simply as Delegate Khan, approached the human warship Phoenix, currently docked in dry storage behind the group. His exoskeletal limbs moved fluidly, four jointed fingers trailing lightly along the vessel's outer hull. His mouth, which clicked more than it spoke, made a noise that Admiral Park had come to recognize as laughter. "This is your most advanced warship?" Khan asked, tilting his head as his mandibles twitched with amusement. Park didn't flinch. "The Phoenix represents the finest engineering Earth has ever produced. It's equipped with next-general energy weapons, hybrid propulsion, and—" "Charming," Khan interrupted. The word landed like a slap in the face. He stepped back, sweeping his hand in a casual arc, gesturing to the other members of the delegation. One, taller and marked with green skin patterns, raised a hovering device that emitted a low hum as it scanned the ship. "They don't want competition," Jinho said, finally breaking his silence. Every eye turned toward him. "They're not scared of what we are. They're scared of what we could become." Director Kim raised an eyebrow. "The Empire has no reason to fear us, Commander. Their tech is millennia beyond ours." "That's not the point," Jinho replied, voice steady. "They've forgotten how to adapt. They've been at the top for so long they don't even look for new ideas anymore. That's our edge. Gotcha." He leaned forward slightly, no longer holding back. "We don't need to match their power. We need to think differently." Admiral Park narrowed his eye. "How differently?" Jinho glanced at the secure device clipped to his belt, then back at the Admiral. "Different enough that when they see our real ship, they won't be laughing." The secret beneath the sea. Nearly a kilometer beneath the Pacific Ocean, far below the reach of satellites or curious eyes, Earth's most secret facility lay hidden in the ocean floor. On the surface, it appeared to be a mundane research platform, just another marine science installation studying deep-sea thermal vents. But that was only the cover. Beneath it stretched a vast, complex cut directly into the crust of the Earth. Miles of corridors, labs, simulation chambers, and reinforced hangars housed humanity's last hope, Project Prometheus. Inside the heart of the installation, Commander Lee Jin-ho stood in front of a massive holographic display showing their prototype vessel. It hovered in virtual space, sleek, angular, and unlike any ship Earth had ever constructed before. The real Prometheus was resting in the next chamber, surrounded by engineers in sealed suits. But this digital model allowed Jin-ho to run critical simulations without risking the hardware. "Run sequence 47 again," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. Chief Engineer Yoon, short and broad-shouldered with grease permanently staining his fingertips, nodded without a word and began typing in the command sequence. On the screen, the simulated Prometheus powered up. A deep blue glow formed around its hull as the experimental inversion field began to activate. For 3 glorious seconds, everything held. Energy curved along the vessel's surface in smooth, flowing waves, proof that the system was finally stabilizing. Then the screen flashed red. The energy wave collapsed in on itself, and the entire field destabilized. Alarms sounded in the virtual environment as the ship's simulated hull disintegrated under the uncontrolled force. Yun winced. The spatial inversions are still unstable. If the field fails during transition, the whole ship goes with it. Or worse, Jin-ho muttered, stepping forward and staring at the waveform collapse. "We're still missing something." He folded his arms, eyes flicking across the data. It wasn't just a design flaw. It was a deeper incompatibility between Earth's understanding of physics and the technology they were trying to create. But that was the whole point of Prometheus. This ship wasn't built to improve Earth's military. It was built to defy the very science the Empire believed to be absolute. Because Prometheus wasn't just another warship. It was an answer to a question the Empire had stopped asking centuries ago. What if the impossible could become possible again? "Pull up the energy signature scans from the Imperial fleet," Jin-ho said suddenly. Yun looked confused but complied. He tapped a few keys, and a new projection appeared beside the simulation. Energy readouts from the engines and weapon systems of the Empire ships currently orbiting Earth. Their patterns were elegant, consistent, and surprisingly familiar. Jinho narrowed his eyes. "What if we're trying to solve this the wrong way?" he asked, thinking out loud. "What if instead of resisting their energy frequencies, we synchronize with them?" "You mean match their signature?" Yoon asked, blinking. "Use their own tech as a stabilizer?" "Exactly," Jinho said, already stepping closer to the console. "Their systems rely on a harmonic frequency that hasn't changed in centuries. It's predictable, refined, but it also makes them vulnerable." Yoon stared at him for a moment before his face lit up with realization. "We embed their resonance into our inversion field, turn their own technology into a framework for stability." Within minutes, the simulation was recalibrated. The Prometheus's field now resonated in perfect harmony with the Imperial pattern. They ran the simulation again, and this time the results were unmistakable. The field held. The energy flowed smoothly. No red lights, no collapses. "It's working," Yoon whispered, voice hushed like he was afraid to scare it away. Jinho allowed himself the smallest smile. "We just used their own science against them." Before he could even finish the thought, his comm device buzzed sharply. It was Director Kim. "How close are you to completion?" she asked without preamble. Jinho's expression tightened. "We just had a breakthrough. If everything holds, we can launch a full test flight in 5 days. "You have too," Kim replied, voice hard. "The Empire isn't waiting anymore. They've just called in a battle group, 6 warships and a command vessel. They'll arrive in 2 days." Jinho's stomach turned cold. "They're already moving on." "They're calling it a precaution, but I think they've detected energy signatures from the Pacific facility. They suspect we're building something." As the call ended, Jinho turned back to Yoon, who had already heard every word. "We need to move faster," Jinho said. Yoon ran his hands through his hair. "We haven't even done full system check. We're barely past 50% on structural integrity simulations. We still need to..." "There's no time for protocol," Jinho cut in. "No breaks, no downtime. I want everyone working in shifts, around the clock. We fly this ship in 48 hours. Yan hesitated only a second before nodding. Understood. Outside the lab, the hangar came to life. Lights flickered on, gantries rolled into place, and engineers began swarming over the Prometheus's hull. She was smaller than Phoenix, only 300 meters long, but every inch of her had been built from a new philosophy. No missiles, no traditional shields, no fusion cannons. Her weapon was understanding. Her strength was inversion. Back in the control room, Jinho stared at the holographic model one more time. He knew this was their only shot. The Empire didn't bluff. When those ships arrived in Earth's orbit, they wouldn't wait to fire if they sensed a threat. Prometheus had to be more than just a ship. It had to be a message. Their greatest strength was our opening. The control room deep beneath the Pacific buzzed with quiet urgency. The lights were low, casting soft glows across holographic displays and data readouts that filled the room with an ambient hum of activity. At the center, Commander Lee Jinho stood motionless, watching the Prometheus simulation replay on the main screen for the 5th time that hour. His expression was calm, but his mind was anything but. The inversion field held steady now. No more collapses, no more catastrophic failures. Instead, the simulated energy rippled around the ship's hull in a perfectly controlled pattern, strong, silent, and stable. The impossible was finally becoming real. "Run it again," Jinho said, his voice quiet but firm. Chief Engineer Yoon nodded, already inputting the next command sequence. Everyone in the room was running on fumes, fueled by coffee, adrenaline, and the looming deadline of Imperial arrival. None of them had slept more than a few hours in days. But nobody complained. Not now. Not with the Empire en route. The screen lit up again with a new simulation. The Prometheus activated its inversion core, and the resonance field bloomed around the ship just as designed. Instead of deflecting incoming energy like a shield, it drew it in, captured it, redirected it. That was the key difference. Earth had spent years trying to match the Empire's military capabilities, designing bigger missiles, more powerful lasers, thicker armor. But it was never going to be enough. The Empire had centuries of refinement on their side, and their systems operated on principles Earth scientists didn't fully understand. Conventional confrontation was suicide, but this wasn't conventional. Jin-Ho stepped closer to the simulation and tapped the overlay, bringing up the frequency signature of the Empire's primary energy weapons. The waveforms were elegant, mathematical, and stable, almost too stable. The Empire had long since perfected their energy systems, and because of that, they hadn't changed them in hundreds of years. That was their blind spot. They've built everything around this frequency, Jin-Ho said aloud, more to himself than anyone else. Every ship, every weapon, every engine. It's like they locked themselves into a single way of thinking. Yun looked up from his station. And we built our entire system to resonate with it. Their strength becomes our fuel. Exactly. The Prometheus didn't need to fight the Empire's technology. It fed on it. The more energy they poured into it, the more power it gained. The inversion field turned the enemy's own force into its advantage, warping the physics of the battlefield in Earth's favor. It was poetic in a way. Status report, Jin-Ho called out to the room. Officer Kang from Life Support replied first. Environmental systems stable. Core radiation levels are within safe limits. Propulsion? He asked, turning to Yun. Engines are running clean, Yun said. We've tested 2 transition cycles. No anomalies since the last recalibration. Weapons system? That question fell to Officer Song, a former fighter pilot who now stood at the tactical console. She hesitated. We don't have weapons in the traditional sense, she said carefully, but the energy release systems are ready. We've tested controlled discharges at various thresholds. All of them match targeting parameters with under 2% deviation. Then it's working, Jin-Ho said, almost to himself. She nodded. I still don't fully understand what I'm firing, though. He gave her a tired smile. That makes 2 of us. That was the other half of Prometheus's mystery. They hadn't just built a new kind of shit, they'd accidentally stumbled into a new kind of physics. The inversion system defied traditional energy models. It wasn't just about absorbing and redirecting, it reframed energy, rewrote its behavior. The Prometheus didn't destroy in the conventional sense. It deactivated. It destabilized. It rendered the most powerful ships in the galaxy useless by short-circuiting the foundation they were built on. It wasn't brute force. It was surgical. Just then, Jin-Ho's comm buzzed. It was Director Kim again. We just received new scans from orbital defense, she said without preamble. The Empire's ships are accelerating. Their lead vessel is less than 36 hours out. Their formation's tightening. Looks like they're preparing for immediate action. Jin-Ho didn't flinch. Then we'll be ready before they get here. You better be, Kim replied. Because if they detect anything suspicious before Prometheus launches, they'll wipe out the facility without blinking. The line went dead. Yoon glanced over. Can we launch in 24? We don't have a choice, Joe replied. Put everyone on full shift rotation. We start final checks tonight. Yoon let out a long breath, then nodded. I'll make it happen. As the control room buzzed with renewed urgency, Jin-Ho walked down the corridor that led to the Prometheus's launch hangar. Behind the thick blast doors, engineers were already powering up the vessel's main systems, prepping for live activation. Steam hissed from the vents, and the enormous support arms holding the ship in place were beginning to retract. Jin-Ho paused in front of the viewing window. The Prometheus sat bathed in blue-white lighting, its dark gray surface drinking in every bit of illumination. Unlike the bulky, angular designs of earlier Earth warships, Prometheus was sleek, seamless, almost organic. She didn't look like a war machine. She looked like something alive. The Empire would never see it coming. They had dismissed Earth as primitive, laughed at the Phoenix, mocked its energy capacity, its weapons, its hull. And in doing so, they revealed everything about how they thought, how they fought, how they didn't change. Prometheus was the opposite of that. She wasn't an escalation of Earth's previous designs, she was a rejection of them, a leap forward. She didn't just bend the rules of engagement, she rewrote them. Jin-Ho rested one hand on the cool glass and stared at the ship they had all built in secret. "Let them come," he said softly. "They'll hit us with everything they have, and we'll give it right back, and then we'll see who adapts." And who crumbled? The day they stopped laughing. The Prometheus rose from the ocean like a ghost, silent and smooth, breaching the surface of the Pacific with almost no sound. Water cascaded off its dark hull in shimmering sheets, catching the early morning sun. There was no smoke, no flame, no thunderous roar, just a low hum and a ripple of energy as the ship lifted off, propelled by an engine system that didn't exist anywhere else in the known galaxy. Commander Lee Jin-Ho stood on the bridge, calm but tightly wound, watching the sky through the main viewport. He could see the blue of Earth above them, the last thin wisps of cloud before they punched into the upper atmosphere. Beyond that, waiting in orbit, were 7 Imperial warships. And all of them were armed. "Final systems check," Jin-Ho ordered. Around him, the 25-person crew moved quickly through their stations. This was the first time they were actually on the Prometheus during flight. Up to now, it had all been training in simulators, theory, models. No drills could simulate this moment, not with what was coming. "Navigation system green," reported Officer Han. "Barely 24, but the sharpest trajectory analyst Earth had." His fingers danced over the display, eyes focused, course locked for high orbit ascent. "Life support holding steady," said Medical Officer Kang. "No anomalies." "Inversion field active," Chief Engineer Yoon called out. "Stable at 20% and climbing." "Weapons system primed," added Tactical Officer Song. "But I still have no idea what I'm actually firing." Jin-Ho didn't blame her. The Prometheus didn't carry traditional weapons, no missiles, no lasers. Instead, it carried something far stranger, a controlled energy redirection system that defied known physics. It didn't destroy by explosion, it unraveled, disrupted, disabled. He settled into the command chair and took a long, slow breath. "Take us up," he said. "Let them see us coming." The ship climbed steadily, passing through the edge of the atmosphere with barely a rumble. The silence was almost unnerving. No sonic boom, no tremors. The Prometheus simply moved effortlessly, purposefully, clearing atmospheric boundary, Han announced. Holding altitude at 300 kilometers. On the tactical screen, the enemy formation came into view. The 6 Imperial destroyers had taken a standard perimeter around a larger command vessel. Each of them was easily triple the size of the Prometheus. Their hulls glinted gold and silver, decorated with the kind of ornate embellishments only an empire obsessed with appearances could afford. "We're being hailed," said Communications Officer, minute multiple signals from the fleet. "Open a channel," Jin-Ho said. The screen in front of the bridge flickered to life, showing the interior of the Imperial command ship. It was lavish marble floors, high ceilings, elaborate uniforms. At its center sat an alien commander with blue-tinted skin and 3 pairs of vertical eyes. His expression was hard to read, but his tone when it came through the translator was unmistakable. "You launch a single vessel," the commander said. "Is this your surrender?" Jin-Ho didn't blink. Not exactly. "This is your one chance to leave Earth peacefully." The alien paused, as if trying to decide if this was a joke. Then the screen expanded to show his bridge officers, all of whom burst into clicking, wheezing laughter. One of them actually pointed at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Your primitive vessel will make a fine example," the commander said. "All ships. Target the Earthcraft. Low power. Disable only." On the Prometheus bridge, Officer Song's console lit up. "We're being locked by all 7 ships," she reported. "Looks like low-frequency ion blast. 10 seconds to impact." Jin-Ho's fingers tightened on the armrests of his chair. "Yoon," he said quietly, "are you ready?" "As will ever be," the engineer replied. "Inversion field holding at 27%. I suggest we don't wait for a second volley." Jin-Ho nodded. "All stations, prepare for impact. Activate inversion now." The energy core at the heart of the Prometheus roared silently to life. The ship was surrounded by a luminous field, glowing faintly like a miniature star. It wasn't a shield, it didn't block or reflect. It absorbed. Impact in 3 seconds, Song warned. Then it hit. A dozen ion beams streaked across the void, colliding with the Prometheus from all directions. The moment they touched the ship's field, they didn't explode, they bent, curved, flowed, like water into a drain. Inversion field holding, Yoon said, astonished. Energy levels rising 40%, 55%, 70%. On the Imperial bridge, confusion rippled across the commander's face. Impossible, he hissed. Full power. Destroy that ship. The next volley came harder, focused beams from the Imperial flagship's main cannons, designed to punch through planetary defenses. But the results were the same. The Prometheus drank them in like fuel. The field now pulsed with raw power, light arcing along the hull like lightning trapped inside a glass orb. Field nearing capacity, Yoon said. We can't hold much more. Then it's time, Jinho said. Song target the command ship, low power pulse only. Let's show them what we can do. The tactical officer entered the command, her fingers hesitant. Pulse ready. Target locked. Fire. A concentrated beam of inverted energy burst from the Prometheus, weaving through space like a living thing. It didn't strike, it slipped, phased, passed through Imperial shielding like it wasn't there. The command ship flickered, then darkened. All systems offline, Song reported. Their propulsion, weapons, everything. We hit only power systems. Life support still active. Jinho leaned forward. Open broadcast channel to all Imperial vessels. Once it was active, he spoke slowly and clearly. This was a demonstration. Leave Earth, don't come back. For several long seconds, there was no response. Then one of the destroyer captains appeared on screen, visibly shaken. This is not over, he said. It never is, Jinho replied. But today, you lost. The Imperial fleet began to retreat, towing their disabled flagship behind them. On the Prometheus bridge, the tension finally broke. Officers exhaled. Song let out a breathless laugh. Yoon stared at the energy readout in awe. It worked, he said. It actually worked. Jinho stood from his chair, looking out at the empty space where the fleet had been. No, he said. It's just the beginning. 3 ships, 1 shot. 3 weeks had passed since the Prometheus stunned the Empire. The encounter had sent shock waves across Earth and ripples throughout the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, a so-called primitive world had stood its ground and won. Inside Earth's new high-orbit command center, now built around the Prometheus-class program, Commander Lee Jinho stood at the central console, studying sensor data scrolling across the screen. A soft chime alerted him to a new contact. Then another, then 35 more. Fleet jump signatures detected, Officer Minute announced, his voice tense. 37 Imperial vessels. Confirmed. The room fell quiet. Jinho didn't react outwardly, but inside his thoughts kicked into overdrive. The Empire hadn't just returned. They had brought a full battle group, more ships than Earth had even dreamed of fielding just a month ago. He took a steady breath. Status of our fleet? 3 ships ready for combat, said Chief Engineer Yoon, stepping up beside him. The Prometheus, Artemis, and Osiris, all equipped with full inversion cores. The others are still 2 weeks out from launch readiness. Jinho nodded slowly. 3 against 37. No backup, no margin for error. Alert the Artemis and Osiris. Tell them to meet us at Jupiter's orbit, he said. We stop them before they even get close to Earth. Within the hour, the 3 ships moved into position just beyond Jupiter's great red eye. The gas giant loomed behind them, a swirling giant of color and pressure, providing an ominous backdrop to the biggest battle Earth had ever faced. Fleet holding formation, Officer Song reported from tactical aboard the Prometheus. Enemy ships entering the system now. Standard Imperial attack pattern. Put their lead ship on screen, Jinho ordered. The display shifted, showing a massive vessel dwarfing even the command ship from the first encounter. Black and gold plating gleamed in the starlight. At its helm stood a new face, an older, more imposing alien with golden markings across his skin. "This is Grand Admiral Vorax of the Imperial Armada," the alien declared through the translator. "Your rebellion will not be tolerated. Surrender now and a portion of your species may be spared." Jinho kept his voice level. "This is Commander Lee of Earth Defense. We will not surrender. This is our home, and we will defend it." The screen cut off without another word. "Here we go," muttered Yun. The Empire began to move. Their ships spread out in formation, clearly attempting to surround the Earth fleet and force a kill zone. "They're sticking to doctrine," Song noted. "Same attack vectors, same energy pattern, no adjustments." "They're not used to being challenged," Jinho said. "Hold position. Let them fire first." The Prometheus, Artemis, and Osiris remained still, their inversion fields building energy quietly in the background. Moments later, the space between the fleets lit up with violent color. Dozens of high-powered energy beams surged toward the Earthships, red, blue, white, enough to vaporize any conventional defense force. But this wasn't a conventional defense. Impact in 3, 2, 1, Song counted down, and then nothing. The inversion fields absorbed the energy cleanly. The ships began to glow like suns, each beam adding more power to their cores. "Containment stable at 87, Yun called. All 3 ships operating within safe levels." Jinho watched the tactical screen. The Imperial formation hadn't changed. They were increasing firepower, trying to brute force their way through just as expected. "They've never had to innovate," he said quietly. "They've won too easily for too long." "Resonance matching is holding," Yun confirmed. "But if they keep ramping up power, we'll hit saturation in under 5 minutes." "Then we hit first," Jinho replied. "All ships prepare for coordinated counterpull." On his mark, each of the 3 Earthships targeted a section of the Imperial fleet. Prometheus at the center, Artemis on the left flank, Osiris on the right. Energy pulsed along their hulls like living plasma. "Locked and ready," Song reported. "Fire." 3 radiant waves burst from the Earthships, controlled blasts of inverted energy that bypassed enemy shields and attacked their internal systems directly. One by one, Imperial ships began to flicker. Engines went dark. Weapon systems powered down. Some simply exploded from the overload. 15 enemy ships disabled, Song announced, trying to stay professional despite the excitement in her voice. 20 destroyed, remaining ships retreating or repositioning. "Target their engines," Jinho ordered. "Don't let them regroup." Smaller energy pulses followed, aimed precisely at propulsion systems. The fleeing ships halted mid-retreat, paralyzed. "All Imperial vessels neutralized," Song said after a pause. "0 threats remaining." The crew didn't cheer, at least not immediately. They were too stunned. 3 ships had taken out an entire battle group. Not through superior numbers, not even through superior firepower, but through a single, revolutionary shift in thinking. Jinho stood slowly and gave his next order: "Open a broadcast to all disabled vessels." The screen flickered again. Grand Admiral Vorax appeared, this time in a darkened bridge filled with smoke and sparks. He looked shaken, furious, but not defeated. "What do you want, human?" he asked, voice tight. "I want you to deliver a message," Jinho replied calmly. "Earth is no longer under Imperial rule. We are a sovereign world, and we are not alone." "You cannot stand against the full might of the Empire," Vorax warned. "This was a fraction of our power." "Then send more ships," Jinho said without hesitation. "The result will be the same. Your weapons empower us. Your systems betray you. The more you fight us, the stronger we become." Vorax was silent for a long moment. He was calculating, not just the military loss, but the political fallout. If other worlds heard what had happened here, what Earth had done, resistance could spread like wildfire. I will deliver your message, he said finally. Good, Jinho said. Make sure it's heard. As the Imperial vessels were allowed to withdraw, Jinho looked around the bridge. The crew, though weary, stood tall. Their eyes carried something new now, not just hope, but conviction. We did it, Yoon whispered. We actually did it, Jinho nodded slowly. This wasn't just a win, he said. It was a warning. He turned back to the stars, now empty of threats. For the first time in generations, Earth was not just surviving in the galaxy. It was leading. The spark that spread. The Prometheus hung silently in Earth's orbit, its sleek gray hull faintly glowing with residual energy. Below it, Earth turned peacefully, its blue oceans and green continents untouched by war for now. 3 weeks had passed since the battle near Jupiter. 3 weeks since a planet once dismissed as irrelevant stunned the galaxy, and the galaxy had taken notice. Commander Lee Jinho stood at the observation deck of the Orbital Defense Headquarters, gazing out at the stars. Dozens of ships floated in coordinated patterns nearby, some human-built, others flown in by alien allies who had once served under the Empire's rule. Now, they stood beside Earth, drawn by the impossible story of Prometheus. They didn't come to conquer, they came to learn. Across hundreds of star systems, news had spread. It traveled faster than any official communique. A whisper that became a wave. Earth had faced the Empire and won, with only 3 ships, not through numbers or superior firepower, but through a complete rejection of how war had always been fought. A different way of thinking. Now other worlds were questioning everything. In the vast meeting hall aboard the orbital station, Commander Jinho stood before a large digital display projecting technical schematics of the Prometheus system. Gathered before him were ambassadors, scientists, and engineers from over 24 species. Some had smooth, glass-like skin. Others were covered in fur, scales, or iridescent armor. Many had never been in the same room together before. Under the Empire, they'd been kept apart, categorized, ranked, and divided. But not here, not now. I know most of you have already heard the story, Jinho said, his voice calm but firm. How we stood against the Empire's battle group with only 3 ships. How we used their own energy against them. But I want to make one thing very clear. He paused, then tapped a control on the display. The image zoomed in on the Prometheus core system. This isn't a weapon, he said. It's a principle. One built on the idea that even an unstoppable force can be undone, not by matching it, but by transforming it. The delegates listened intently. Some took notes, others simply stared. We didn't just build a ship, Jinho continued. We built a new way of thinking, a system that doesn't resist or retaliate. It adapts, it evolves. And that's something the Empire forgot how to do a long time ago. In the back of the room, a tall, thin alien from the Senchu Federation stood slowly. Her skin shimmered with shifting colors, and her eyes were jet black. Our people have been under tribute for over 300 years, she said. The Empire took our oceans, our sunstones, and our children. But now they hesitate. They've pulled back their patrols. They're quiet, afraid. She looked directly at Jinho. You gave us something we haven't had in generations, hope. Others nodded. Some murmured in agreement. A representative from the Proxima colonies spoke next. We've already begun adapting your resonance tech to our mining vessel. Not for war, but to protect our sovereignty, to build without fear. Jinho nodded. That's why we're sharing it. Freely, without patents, without oversight. The Empire built its strength by hoarding power and crushing dissent. We believe power should be shared. Behind him, the projection displayed a rotating model of the inversion field generator. It broke down the science, the math, the theory behind its success. Jinho wasn't holding anything back. Earth had already transmitted full schematics to dozens of worlds, bypassing old Empire communication systems entirely. He wasn't just inviting collaboration. He was seeding rebellion, not with fire, but with ideas. In one corner of the hall sat the Imperial delegation. Their once glorious uniforms had been toned down. No gilded trim, no ceremonial swords. They looked like what they were now, messengers from a shaken regime. The lead imperial representative, a tall male of Oryx's species, stood slowly. The Empire recognizes the altered balance of power, he said, carefully choosing his words. We do not wish for further conflict. Instead, we propose a mutual alliance, shared command, a more balanced galactic structure. Murmurs rippled through the room. Jinho didn't react right away. He turned off the hologram and faced the Imperial envoy. We're not interested in replacing one empire with another, he said calmly. This isn't about shifting the hierarchy, it's about ending it. The envoy looked unsettled, but we are offering Earth command of the Third Fleet. 100 vessels, fully staffed. You would shape the new era. Jinho shook his head. We didn't build Prometheus to dominate. We built it to survive. And now that we want something different. He turned to the broader assembly, raising his voice so everyone could hear. We propose a new system. One where each world governs itself, where a galactic council exists only to coordinate, not control. A network of equals, not subject. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, one of the smaller delegates stood. We support this vision, she said. No more empire, no more tribute. Cheers broke out across the chamber, not loud but growing. Agreement, relief, resolve. The Empire hadn't just lost a battle, it had lost its mystique. Jinho didn't smile. He knew this wasn't over. The Empire still had thousands of ships, vast resources, and millions who believed in its supremacy. But now, the illusion had cracked. That mattered. He approached the window at the far end of the chamber. Outside, 5 new Prometheus-class ships floated in dock, freshly built. Engineers from Earth, Senchu, and Proxima worked side by side on Maine. Nearby, a freighter from a freed mining colony unloaded supplies to aid a damaged former Empire world. A galaxy once divided by fear was beginning to reconnect. Officer Song approached from behind. The new captains are asking where we'll send the next exploration mission, she said. Jinho glanced at a nearby star chart. The Orion Fringe, he replied. Empire marked it as non-viable, too chaotic, too unpredictable. So of course, she said, smiling. We're going straight there, he nodded. They only valued what they could control. They never saw the full picture. That's why they lost. As he turned back toward the gathered council, he knew this wasn't just a turning point for Earth. It was a new beginning for everyone. The council is born 6 months. That's how long it had been since the first Prometheus-class ship disabled an Imperial fleet. In that time, more had changed in the galaxy than in the last 6 centuries. Where once there had been silence and submission, now there was motion, tension, and the unmistakable rumble of change. Across hundreds of star systems, former subjects of the Empire were rising not with vengeance, but with intent. And now, on the neutral world of Altera, something was being built that had never existed before. A place where free worlds could speak as equals. The massive council chamber had once been an imperial governor's palace, its towering ceilings and polished stone floors designed to intimidate. But now, the Empire's banners had been torn down. In their place hung flags from over 24 newly independent worlds. Where once there had been armed guards in gleaming armor, now there were translators, engineers, and advisors representatives from species that had only ever known one thing: rule from above. Commander Li Jianho walked alone toward the central platform. He wore no medals, no cape, no ornate symbols of power. Just a dark blue uniform, simple and clean. He didn't come as a conqueror or a politician. He came as a witness, someone who had seen what the galaxy had been, and who now dared to imagine what it could become. Around him sat delegates from a wide spectrum of civilizations. Some looked like shimmering clouds of gas. Others were scaled, feathered, or luminous. Dozens of voices, languages, and histories finally in the same room, not because of the Empire's command, but because they had chosen to be. "Thank you for coming," Jinho began. His voice projected softly through universal translation fields. 6 months ago, Earth was nothing more than another world facing forced integration. Today, we stand here together, equal, unbound, and united in something new. The room remained quiet, the silence not cold, but respectful. Most of those present knew what had happened near Jupiter. They had seen the footage. They had read the reports. Some had even built their own Prometheus-class ships using the schematics Earth had shared without condition. But hearing it from him, hearing it from the man who'd sat in that chair, given that order, and watched the Empire retreat meant something different. "We didn't defeat the Empire because we had better ships," Jinho continued, "or more resources, or older bloodlines. We defeated them because we changed the question." He tapped a control on the nearby console, and the central hologram flared to life, showing a simplified visual of the inversion field. A sphere of energy absorbed an oncoming barrage and returned it, reshaped. "We stopped trying to play by their rules," he said. "They taught the galaxy that power meant control, that peace came from submission. That order was maintained through fear." He looked around the chamber. "We believed something else, that peace can come from understanding, that real strength lies in adaptability, in diversity, in cooperation." He let that hang for a moment. Then, he stepped back from the hologram. "That's why Earth refuses command of the Empire's Third Fleet." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the delegate. The offer had been made in private, an open hand from the fractured Empire, hoping to co-opt Earth's momentum by placing it in charge of one of the most formidable remnants of its once glorious navy. But Earth said no. The lead Imperial delegate, seated in a more isolated section of the hall, stood. He was of the same species as Grand Admiral Vorix, with pale ridges along his jawline that denoted even higher status. "You would refuse command of 100 ships?" the delegate asked, voice calm but tight. "A fleet that could ensure order in this unstable time?" Jinho didn't hesitate, because that fleet wasn't offered for peace. It was offered to preserve a system we no longer believe in. Order without justice is not stability. It's silence. The Imperial representative narrowed his eyes. "You speak of change as if it comes easily. The Empire has stood for thousands of years. Systems that old do not shift overnight." Jinho gave a slow nod. "We don't expect them to, but we're not asking permission either." He turned back to the rest of the council. "We propose a new structure, a council not of rulers but of neighbors, a place where trade, defense, and mutual aid can be coordinated but never imposed. No single species leads. No one world commands the rest." Delegates leaned forward. Some nodded slowly. Others exchanged glances, surprised but intrigued. "We've seen what the Empire built," Jinho said. "A galaxy locked in a hierarchy so rigid it could not bend, only break. What we're offering is something the Empire never understood: balance." A seal-armed delegate from the Proxima colonies rose. Her people had suffered some of the worst abuses under Imperial taxation. Her voice, though quiet, carried weight. "And if the Empire does not accept this change," she added, "if they return with weapons our resonance fields cannot counter?" Jinho looked at her, then at the rest of the room. "Then they'll learn Prometheus wasn't our last innovation," he said. "It was only our first." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, representatives began to stand. One from the Sentu Federation, one from the Valar Enclave, one from the refugee worlds of the Outer Belt. "We support Earth's proposal," the Sentu delegate said, "not because we fear the Empire, but because we're tired of fearing each other." The motion passed without a vote, only by the collective rising of bodies from their seats. It wasn't a decision made through procedure. It was made through presence. After the session ended, Jinho walked to the large windows at the rear of the chamber. Below, dozens of ships from across the galaxy floated together, vessels from once separate worlds sharing the same port, the same airlocks, the same stories. Officer Song joined him, carrying a tablet. "The new Prometheus-class vessels are complete," she said. 5 more just entered service. Crews are standing by. Jinho nodded. Send them out, not as warships. As envoys. To where? He studied the star map displayed on the glass. The outer systems. The ones marked as non-viable by the Empire. Let's see what they missed. Song smiled. Exploration instead of conquest. That's a first. No, he said. That's a return. He looked one last time at the gathered representatives behind him, so different yet now so close. The Empire had ruled for 3,000 years, but in just 6 months, something new had begun to grow. Not through force, but through choice. The galaxy ahead. The last meeting of the Council had ended hours ago, but Commander Li Jinho remained near the vast glass wall of the spaceport's upper deck. From here, he could see nearly 100 ships docked below some barely larger than shuttles. They came in every shape and color, designed by minds that had evolved under entirely different suns. And yet, for the first time, they were parked side by side. Not because of war, but because of choice. Behind him, voices murmured through the wide corridors. Delegates mingled, aides passed along translated messages, and young officers from newly formed joint crews walked shoulder to shoulder. Jinho watched them for a moment. Then he turned his attention to the stars. Officer Song approached quietly, a slim datapad in hand. Her uniform, like his, bore no rank insignia, just a small circular patch over the left shoulder, a silver star wrapped in 4 interwoven lines. The symbol of the newly formed Free Worlds Council. 5 more Prometheus-class ships are ready, she reported. Crews trained, systems tested. The home fleet is waiting on your go-ahead for their first deployment. Jinho didn't answer right away. His eyes lingered on the star chart displayed above the spaceport gate. It mapped the Orion Arm and beyond, dotted with red, green, and white indicators. Friendly systems, neutral zones, and former Imperial strongholds. But what caught his attention weren't the colored zones. It was the gray, the unexplored. Where do we send them first? Song asked, following his gaze. He pointed to a quiet cluster of systems beyond the fringe. There, the Empire marked them non-viable. Too far from supply lines. Not enough resources. Too unstable, which means, she said, they never really looked. He nodded. The Empire only valued what it could extract or control. It never saw the full picture. That was what had doomed it in the end. Not a single battle, not a stronger weapon, but its refusal to change. Its need to dominate had blinded it to the power of something simpler: connection. Jinho turned back toward the vast hangar below. Among the ships docked were dozens that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Hybrid vessels built with shared technology. Engineers from Earth worked beside Velar artisans, Sentu mechanics, and Proxima system navigators. Together, they developed faster engines, cleaner power systems, and more stable inversion cores. This wasn't just about building ships anymore. It was about building something new. A few of the delegates are still nervous, Song said. The Empire hasn't officially collapsed. They still hold thousands of systems. I know, he replied. But the myth has been broken. That's what matters. He looked back at the stars, his expression thoughtful. They built their empire on fear, on convincing everyone resistance was pointless. But now the stories are spreading. Word of Earth's stand, of the fleet that didn't fall, of a system that turned strength against itself, and of a commander who turned down an offer to rule, Song added. Jinho smiled faintly. That part's probably exaggerated. Still true, she said. They stood in silence for a moment, watching as a newly completed Prometheus-class ship lifted from the dock with slow, deliberate grace. Its hull gleamed dark gray, reflecting nothing, drawing in all light. It didn't look like a vessel of war. It looked like something meant to endure. How long do you think we have? Song asked quietly. Before they come back stronger? Before the Empire tries again with something we can't stop? Jinho didn't answer immediately. He watched the ship disappear into the distance, then turned to her. Maybe months, maybe years. But they will come. And what do we do when that happens? We'll be ready, he said. But more importantly, we won't be alone. That was the difference now. Earth was no longer a solitary world fighting for survival. It was a symbol of possibility, of resistance, of innovation. And in systems once silenced by fear, people were beginning to ask questions. They were beginning to imagine alternatives. Not conquest. Exploration, not subjugation. Coexistence. Jin Ho looked down at the datapad in Song's hand. "What's the home fleet's designation for this first mission?" he asked. She smiled. Exploration Initiative 1. 5 ships, crews from 12 worlds. First destination, the Veilous Corridor. Second, the Crate Cloud. After that open chart. "Perfect," he said. "Tell them we launch in 1 week." Song tapped her pad and sent the message, then looked back up. "You sure you don't want to go with them? Command the mission directly?" He shook his head. "If I go, it becomes about me. This has to be bigger than one person." "You really hate being the hero," she said with a grin. "I'm not a hero," he replied. "I just refuse to give in." Across the spaceport, a group of young cadets from Earth and Senchu stood around a schematic table, animatedly discussing propulsion flows. One of them noticed Jin Ho watching and waved awkwardly. He gave a slight nod in return. That was the real victory, not disabling a fleet or winning a battle. It was this moment. Shared purpose, shared future. The Empire had relied on hierarchy and fear, convinced that if its structure broke, chaos would follow. But they were wrong. Without the weight of the old order, the galaxy hadn't fractured. It had begun to breathe. "We've already had a dozen new worlds request contact," Song said. "Some are offering resources. Others just want to know they're not alone." Jin Ho felt a flicker of hope. "Then let's make sure they aren't." As they walked back toward the council chamber, the halls buzzed with quiet energy, language barriers softened by translation fields, political walls softened by shared memory. Delegates who had once feared even speaking to each other now sat side by side, drafting trade agreements and planetary defense pacts. Outside, the 5th Prometheus-class ship reached high orbit and began a slow turn toward deep space. It wasn't chasing anyone, it was looking forward. Jin Ho stopped once more to take in the view. Earth glowed quietly in the distance, no longer dwarfed by an Imperial fleet, no longer seen as prey. It was just another planet, now one among many. But one that had lit the match. As Song stepped into the lift, she turned and asked, "Where do we go next, Commander?" Jin Ho looked back at the stars. "Anywhere we haven't been told not to,"